Ashley, what is our first main topic today?
First one is from Thomas Paterson. Hey, John. In a recent interview, Kathleen Kennedy stated they tried with Solo to see if they could do 2 Star Wars films in a year. After seeing the performance, they said they backed off it. Do you think that Lucasfilms is taking away the right lesson from Solo? Personally, I don't think so. What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely not. That is not the lesson to be taken away. Look, there were people, big Star Wars fans, including me, that when they announced that they were going to do a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford, when we just had Harrison Ford as Han Solo in a Star Wars movie, that this was a movie that nobody asked for and nobody wanted. Now, obviously, that's hyperbole. Clearly, some people did. But we said all along, nobody asked for this movie. Han Solo movie in 20 years with somebody other than Harrison Ford? Sure, go ahead, do that. We just had Harrison Ford on screen against Han Solo, and now you're asking people like a year later to come back into theaters and watch a movie that with a character they've watched for 4 decades almost as somebody else. I said it from the beginning, it was not going to work. And even though Ron Howard put together what I thought was a really fun space adventure entertaining movie, it's no surprise that the film just around $400 million. And with all the reshoots, that means that movie lost money. A Star Wars movie lost money. Was the takeaway that, we just shouldn't do 2 movies in a year? Here's specifically where that's coming from. So this is from the, of course, Empire Magazine, one of the big movie magazines. They have a podcast, and this is what was shared. Funnily enough, I asked Kathleen Kennedy this very question, and she was quite candid. She said they learned their lesson from Solo, that doing 2 films in less than a year wasn't something the fans were prepared to accept. And she's hands up, we made a mistake with that. Here's the problem. Did you make a mistake making a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford, so close to Ford being in there when nobody asked for it? Yes. Was the mistake that you made it within a year of another Star Wars movie? Hell no. If that's what they're taking away from this, if that's what they thought the problem was, then there's a bigger issue here that we need to talk about. That wasn't the issue. Hell, you've got Mandalorian coming out in November and then a Star Wars movie in theaters in December. If the lesson is the fans can't take too much Star Wars, well then you're putting this whole series out 1 month away from a movie coming out. That's not the problem. The MCU can crank out 3 movies per year. That's not the problem. Now, I've never wanted 3 Star Wars movies a year. I like pacing them out, all that kind of stuff.
What?
I like pacing them out. I don't want to have too much at once, but that was not the problem at all. And I think if Kathleen Kennedy really thinks that, which I can't believe for a second she really thinks that, I think she's owning up to that mistake, which wasn't really the mistake, so she doesn't have to own up to the big. And I'm a Kathleen Kennedy fan. There's a reason Steven Spielberg, the greatest filmmaker of all time, calls her the greatest producer he's ever worked with. There's a reason for that. I am a Kathleen Kennedy fan. But I believe this is a situation where she is owning up to a mistake that doesn't look so bad. We just shouldn't have done 2 movies a year. Instead of owning up to the fundamental core mistake of, we didn't realize that this was just a bad idea to make a movie out of right now in the first place, because that one takes a little bit more egg on the face. And that's what I think about this. Rob, you've heard me rant about this. You read the comment there. Is she right? Was the problem that it was just within a year of another Star Wars movie and that's the issue, or was it something else?
No, she's totally wrong. And I'll tell you something. Kathleen Kennedy is one of the great producers Hollywood has ever seen. But here's the thing. She's a nuts and bolts, get it done, adhere to your budget and schedule producer. She took over Lucasfilm. She was a great hire, but she has no understanding and no connection to the fan base that has made these movies so popular for almost a century now. And making a Han Solo movie was an idea somebody came up with in a boardroom without any understanding of why Star Wars has been Star Wars for 40 years. Contrasting to what I was always said, Kevin Feige produced 13 Marvel movies before he started the MCU. He understands the subject matter. He understood the fan base. He understood what worked and what didn't work. He was intimately familiar with producing movies in the Marvel space. Kathleen Kennedy comes on board because she knew Lucas and Spielberg, great producer, did not understand the fan space. And contrast that with the scene. The thing is, nobody cares about a Han Solo movie that doesn't involve Harrison Ford as Han Solo. The idea of recasting Han Solo within, as you pointed out, a year and a half or something after seeing the real Han Solo die was a complete mistake. You make a Boba Fett movie and you knock it out of the park, people will go and it makes $1 billion if it's great, because nobody knows about Boba Fett. You can do anything you want. And just that scene I watched, I hate to say it, yes, I did watch that scene from The Mandalorian that stars Werner Herzog when the Mandalorian goes and meets him and takes a job. There is more Star Wars, there's more delight in that 3-minute clip and then the montage afterwards than in everything that's come out of the new Disney run Star Wars. And I think that, look, an Obi-Wan trilogy, finding out where Obi-Wan was from the end of Revenge of the Sith to the beginning of Star Wars, that would have been epic. People would have been excited for that because Ewan McGregor coming back playing Obi-Wan would have made the fans excited. But you recast Han Solo, and then you're expected to like all these new people playing familiar roles. How much more excited are you to see? I mean, Donald Glover was great as Lando, but how much more exciting was it to see Billy D. Williams coming back in the trailer for Rise of Skywalker? I mean, they don't get it. Dave Filoni gets it. You know, everybody that works on Rebels and the animated show and the Clone Wars gets it. But what's funny is, as in Hollywood, there's a prejudice against that. Oh, those guys were doing animation. We're making movies. You know,
well,
and yeah.
Let's not forget, too, that, I mean, she is the person that gave the stamp to Rogue One. I think Rogue One is great. She gave the stamp to The Force Awakens. A lot of us like The Force Awakens very much. She's the one who's putting Mandalorian on the screen. She's the one that had greenlit and put, I'm not a Star Wars Rebels fan. Rebels I am. I'm not a Star Wars Clone Wars fan, but a lot of people are. She's the one responsible for it coming back. So it's not like she has this absolute disconnect. And that's the thing that bothers me a bit here. It's not the fact that it's not like she has some kind of massive disconnect from the fan base. She's hit it out of the park a couple of times here. What bothers me is just, look, you're not always going to hit it out of the park. You're going to make mistakes.
Right.
When you make mistakes, just own up to the mistake. Don't make up a secondary mistake that isn't a real thing and try to own up to the real mistake. You know what? We totally misread the fan base on this. We thought there would be a big hunger for Solo, even without Harrison Ford. We were wrong about that. We misread the fan base on this. We own up to it. Now let's go in, take those lessons learned. Let's go make The Mandalorian. Own it and use it as fuel to move forward. Don't try to disguise it and hide it. And that's the thing, because I am excited for Mandalorian. I am excited for whatever Benioff and Weiss are doing, whatever Rian Johnson's doing. I'm excited for all that stuff, but it's just stuff like this. When they own up to something that's not the problem and fail to own up to what was the problem, it shakes my confidence a little, Rob. It just shakes my confidence a bit.
I agree. And look, I love Kathleen Kennedy. Her legacy to my youth and my growing up has been immeasurable. But the thing is, Kathleen Kennedy is a great administrator. And she doesn't have, like, where Kevin Feige loves this material, loves the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She needs a major domo. She needs a Bib Fortuna. She needs a Star Wars Bib Fortuna to stand next to her and whisper into her ear and say, he's no Jedi. When, somebody who knows the Star Wars franchise that understands what the fan base wants. And you know what? I think she knows enough now, like you said. I think whoever they got, whoever said yes to The Mandalorian, if it was Jon Favreau, he threw his weight around. Look, when you see a door open, when The Mandalorian is going to make a deal, a door opens, and the first thing you hear is a gonk droid. I'm like, these people know their Star Wars. They know it's just there's so much flavor, as John Schnepp would say, in what they're doing with The Mandalorian, because those people were given the blessing to go out and do what they do, and they know and they love Star Wars. And it shows in the 3-minute sequence that they showed at Celebration.
And here's the thing that we really got to be, I'm going to be keeping my eye on a lot. You're so right about how Kathleen Kennedy's main just is that of an administrator. And that's why filmmakers love working with her, because she makes it happen. But as that, I think that goes to what I think her biggest failing has been as the head of Lucasfilm is she's gone through directors like laundry. Like there have been a number of their projects where they had directors, oh, we're on the same page. Oh, we're not on the same page, because she has never been able to creatively sync herself with the people she has brought on as directors. I'm hoping now that those lessons have been learned. She went to a tried and true source in a Ron Howard. She goes to somebody like a Jon Favreau. She's going to somebody like Benioff and Weiss for things like that. I'm hoping these are all signs, particularly the Favreau pick. I'm hoping these are all signs that she has learned a very hard and costly lesson in all the director drama they've had before leading into this. But again, Rob, I just feel a little bit more confident in that if she would just own up to the mistake of Solo and then move on from it instead of camouflaging it. But
well, what's interesting too about Solo is it's not a bad movie.
No, it's a good movie.
It's a really
good space adventure.
A really solid movie. I think a great adventure set in the Star Wars universe. It's just that you're watching a film where, as a viewer, as a lifetime Star Wars lover, I could not reconcile. I'm watching somebody who's trying really hard to play Han Solo, but it's not Han Solo.
And I like the kid. I like the kid playing Solo. And I liked what Donald Glover did. I like what Ron Howard did. But it was just a movie nobody asked for.
I do want to say one last thing about Kathleen Kennedy. She did do some ballsy hires. She did. Yep. She went after young independent directors who were making their bones in the industry. And she, on a spreadsheet, she did what a good producer does. You work with people that seem to be up and coming and doing well. What she did not understand, I think, is that she was used to powerhouse directors coming in and not being a problem, and she would facilitate their visions. Whatever they needed, she would put on the table for them to use. These directors that came in were not as experienced working on these kinds of movies as she had hoped. And her choices at first that were ballsy and they were unique and they were out of the box did not work out because she doesn't have the understanding. She hasn't worked with those kinds of directors yet. She's worked with directors that were very reliable and really knew their stuff and were used to working in the studio system, whereas these younger hires, maybe not so much. They were more loose cannons and they were younger and they were less experienced. And I think she's learned her lesson, and we're seeing that in The Mandalorian.